This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Jerry S.
Yeah, Jerry the Raisins. How we get the raisins?
Hi, my name's Jerry Shamalis, and I'm an alcoholic. Hey, it's a delight to be here tonight. God, what a high-energy room. I'll tell you, this is terrific. I want to thank you very much, Richard, for asking me to come over, and happy birthday to the birthday people. I want to welcome the newcomers to Alcoholics Anonymous. We're delighted that you're here. All of us were once new, so we know what it's like to kamikaze into alcoholics, like the cake tonight, just splat. I don't. That's kind of what it was like for me when I came to AA. I literally was in a total tailspin. And incidentally, you don't have to go down as far down the ladder as I did if you're new. I mean, I was a complete, total train wreck. When I got to AA, I was homeless, I was unemployable, I was at the absolute bottom of the food chain. In fact, this was one of the first meetings that I went to in AA, was in this room. And I didn't really identify with the speaker. But I knew that the jig was up, that I really was dying. I had hepatitis A, hepatitis B, hepatitis C. My liver was distended, you know, my gut was distended, and I was bloated. I probably, maybe if I was lucky, I had a 6-month shelf life when I got here. And I was introduced to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous in the Tarzana Psychiatric Hospital. I'm sure we probably have some alumni here tonight from the Tarzana Psychiatric Hospital. And boy, what a fantastic program AA is. Just to be alive in a time when there is a way out of, and I learned here that what I have is a fatal illness, progressive in nature. It gets worse and never better without treatment, and this is the only treatment I've ever been able to find that's has enabled me to live a constructive life, clean and sober, without being incarcerated. Now that's maybe you get sober by being in the slam or something like that, but what a fantastic life. You know, just to be alive in a time when there is AA. I mean, it's just since 1935. You know, the Big Book was published in 1939, that there has been a way out of this hopeless state of mind and body. And if you're new, when I got here, I essentially thought that I had lost my mind, that I had irretrievably lost my ability to function in the human community. I was operating essentially as an animal. I had been on heroin for 10 years. I was on methadone maintenance for 3.5 years. And if you're a purist, I apologize. I definitely drank alcohol heavily and qualify as an alcoholic. When I was on methadone maintenance, I got on 2 programs simultaneously. Nice. One was not enough. I love what William Burroughs said about methadone. It's like treating a Scotch addict with bourbon. And while I was on the methadone treatment is when I really became, you know, a heavy drinker. I drank a lot of alcohol. And let me give you some vital statistics. I'm 57 years old. I've been sober in Alcoholics Anonymous for 31 years. My life has been, you know, revolutionized by Alcoholics Anonymous. I have been given a tremendous gift. And all I have to do is keep suiting up and showing up and do what you guys taught me to do. And essentially, my priorities have to be in this order. If I take a look at the wheel of my life today, the hub has to be AA. AA's got to come before everything. And even with 31 years of sobriety, I was just in Paris, France over the holidays, and I found myself leaning over the counter at a pharmacy looking at the drugs, and this with 31 years of sobriety and thousands of meetings, saying, gee, I wonder if they have the class 2. I wonder I just found myself asking really insane, sort of dope fiend alcoholic questions with 31 years of sobriety, and it reminds me that this is never 100% gone. It is, as long as I stay in the ring and stay in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and make AA my hub. But if I stop doing what you guys taught me to do, I have no illusions. I could go out. I could get drunk, man. At 31, 35 years, you just say, here's what it takes. Get cocky, get complacent. In a word, get complacent in AA. It's not a job situation that's going to get me high. It's not a relationship situation. It's not a health issue. In a word, it's complacency in Alcoholics Anonymous. So the way I remember that is I go to a lot of meetings today. And I had lunch, I was at a noon meeting today, I had lunch with a guy, started going to AA meetings in 1976. Now, I got sober in 1977. And what a treat to listen to this guy. He has 94 days. He has spent 15 years since 1976 until today, 15 years in state penitentiary. Corcoran, maybe Saul, I don't know what the other two were. He had he's got 6 strikes. So, I mean, this guy is toast. If he steals a bicycle, he's going down for 25 years. And I sat down with this guy, and I thought, there, but for the grace of God goes me. I could have ended up in the same jam. This guy, he's on interferon for hepatitis C. He's got 94 days sober. His life is a train wreck. And this guy started out as an undergraduate at a prestigious school on the East Coast, went to law school, became a lawyer, and lost everything, ended up in jail. And so, for me, AA first, then family, and then work. That's how I have to prioritize. The hub is AA, then I can put the scope of family, and then the spoke of work, and then the spoke of whatever other things you want to do. But AA has to be the center of the wheel of my life. And what a great life it is. If you're new, I was at a meeting recently in New York City, and there's so much wisdom in AA. You hear these people it was great to see the cake people today and see the newcomers get the chips. If I stay attentive and listen, there's always just great little jewels and great things that you learn in Alcoholics Anonymous. I heard a guy with 45 years of sobriety, and he quoted Winston Churchill, and he said, Winston Churchill, there's nothing more exhilarating in life than being shot at and missed. And he equated that with his sobriety. He said, I dodged a bullet. If you're in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, you dodged a bullet. He said that you etched on that bullet are jails, institutions, or a premature death. And that's the outcome for untreated alcoholism. And I learned it here after having been in jails and institutions. But I learned what was the matter with me is that I am an alcoholic. Selfish in the extreme, emotionally immature, grandiose, undisciplined, and I started experimenting with alcohol and mind-altering drugs when I was about 14 years old. My first mind-altering drug was glue. We put glue in a sock, and you kind of get this wah, wah, wah kind of weird buzz. Yeah, the Huey helicopter program. Kind of a weird buzz. And I didn't really like it, but it felt better than I did on the Natch. And then we got into what we call gorilla biscuits, which were Lily F40s, the barbiturates. And those would kind of make you like Gumby. I became like a human peach, man. I just knocked into things and had bruises all over myself. And then we did a lot of pot, and pot made me really paranoid. Marijuana, I would get very introverted and paranoid, kind of reduced, I think, my IQ to single digit. How you doing, Jerry? What do you mean by that, man? Wow. That's heavy. That's heavy, man. That's deep. How you doing? I was weird, man. I was a weird alcoholic drug addict. And then I got on smack when I was 16, heroin, and that's kind of hard drug to use socially. And by the time I was 18 and a half, I had moved to Chicago to get on the methadone treatment program. And the reason I moved is there was a 2-year waiting list to get on the program here. And by the way, I don't mean to offend anybody if you just drank alcohol. I really apologize. I mean, I just want you to know that the era that I grew up in, we were pretty much in my group trash cans. We would do anything and everything, and it was during the 60s, during the Vietnam War and the hippie. It was basically kind of almost a civil war going on in America. And you know, and Timothy Leary was a role model, and it was a bizarre time in American history. And so we just did anything and everything. And you know, the thing that's phenomenal is that we survive long enough to make it here, to make it to AA. I mean, I pummeled my body, pounded myself so badly. It is absolutely, I had a car accident at 18, 160 stitches on my face. I mean, I don't have the time to go into the, you know, close call scenarios that I had, seconds and inches, that I should have been dead. I should have been dead over 50 times based on my behavior and my complete, you know, lack of rational behavior. I was totally irrational. All I wanted to do was get high. I became pretty good at doing that, and then it stopped working. And I was at the jumping off point. I was 26 years old. I thought I had lost my mind. I thought I was irretrievably insane. I had called the Suicide Prevention Center. My best thinking was, I got to take myself out. I got to take myself out. That was the best that I could do at 26 years of age. Pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just thought I was irretrievably nuts and destined to live out the life of an alcoholic, drug addict, and to, you know, live fast, die early, and, you know, have a good-looking corpse. That was a really kind of romantic. What a foolish thing to think. That was a funny thing to say with a bunch of your friends. Hey, I'm going to live fast, die young, and have a good-looking corpse. Like, that's cool, right? But I thought it was cool, and I came very close to actualizing that vision. So when I got here. And if you're new, I hope you're desperate, man. I was desperate. I was reduced to a level of complete incompetence in every area, man. I was incompetent in every area. I could no longer function. I was filled with fear. I was filled with anger. And what I saw here, and I see it today 31 years later, is I see hope. In AA, we see recovery. I saw it here tonight. You can feel it in this room, man. There's like an energy, a healing energy. You can feel it before the meeting, during the meeting. I mean, it's fantastic, you know, that we get together. And to be alive in a time when AA exists, this is a phenomenon. Alcoholics Anonymous is a phenomenon. It doesn't make any sense that this thing is here, that it works, and it works so well. Our co-founder, Bill Wilson, they did an article in Time magazine on the 100 most influential, it was either in Time or Look, 100 most influential people of the last century. You know, Einstein and all these guys. And out of all the people on the planet, 100 of the most influential, and our co-founder, Bill Wilson, was recognized for being one of those 100 people for changing psychiatry's perception on man's capacity to change. And I had the privilege of going to Bill Wilson's place where Bill and Lois lived in Bedford, New York. Their place called Stepping Stones. This is where they lived, and where Bill Wilson wrote the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. And it's really, if you get back to New York, you know, go out and see Stepping Stones. It's fantastic. It's a museum there. And to see how the incredible exertion of Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith, and what they had to do to keep this thing together for us and for future generations, that there's a place to go. You know, prior to Alcoholics Anonymous, there was no real system for getting out of the jam that we're in. And so one of the pieces of paper I was reading there that Bill Wilson had written was about the importance of exertion. And I love that word because we have to exert ourselves here in AA. We have to go to the meeting when we don't want to go to the meeting. We have to do what's in front of us, and exertion is a very powerful word because to me you have to use your willpower constructively. And I've had to use I've gone through many difficulties in my time in AA, many setbacks. I mean, like I said, I was unemployable. I did my first inventory when I had 28 days of sobriety. And the reason for that is I was so desperate of thinking maybe I can find what you guys have here if I just jump in with everything I have. I did my first inventory, I did my first 3 steps, then my inventory, read my 5th step at 28 days of sobriety. It was not real deep inventory, it was as best I could do. But it showed a willingness on my part that I had never had before. And what you said to me is be honest and open-minded and willing. And this is not the Jerry Shamala's program, this is the AA program. If we want to know how to be homeless and unemployable, we'll ask you for advice, Jerry. But we're not interested. You do it our way or the highway. And I'm really glad that I had that tough love. And I had the incredible privilege of hearing wonderful people in AA like Chuck C. and Norm Alpe and Johnny Harris and these great speakers, and Serenity Sam. I mean, these guys were fantastic in my early years of sobriety. And June Guinan and Bobby Earl. Bobby Earl gave a great talk and then he spun out. And so I had I heard the hope, and I saw the people that had recovered from this seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, and I thought, maybe I can have this thing too. Maybe I can, instead of destroying my life one more time, maybe I can come in here and saddle up with you people and do what you ask me to do. And everything good in my life, everything positive, everything constructive comes from my involvement in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I couldn't pay you guys back in 1,000 lifetimes. I have a duty to suit up and keep showing up and be part of the program. And if you're new, if you don't hear what you want to hear tonight, what they told me is just keep coming back. Keep going to the meetings. There is a solution here. And if I can get sober, anybody can get sober. Anybody can rebuild their life. And I was always grateful for the people that, there's a lot of inspiration in AA. There's such an incredible resource in Alcoholics Anonymous for any kind of problem. In addition to sobriety and the spiritual path, any kind of practical issue that I had, I could find somebody here. It was incumbent upon me to reach out and to take positive action and to ask for help. But I'll tell you, there is an unlimited amount of opportunity to get help in Alcoholics Anonymous. If you mean business here, you will find just an incredible number of people that will help you. So if you're new, I hope you mean business. As I bounced around, my first thing was I went to get I think about where I'm at today and sitting there having lunch with this guy today that has 94 days of sobriety. And I contrast where he's at and where I'm at. And it's all because of AA, and I could very easily have been him. I could have very easily spent the last, out of the last 20 years, 15 years in the joint. I could have easily, been in a very bad way right now, but I'm not because of you. I have hope. I have a future. I mean, I'm 57, but I think a lot of my productivity is going to be ahead of me. I'm a cancer survivor. 2 years ago, I had a surgery for cancer. I'm clear of that cancer. So I try, today with everything I've been through, man, I just say, hey, I'm going to live every day within the framework of AA. I'm going to live every day as though it were my last, because, one of these days I'm going to be right. And when I'm dead, I'm going to be dead a long time. So this is it right now. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is our time. when we go, we go. I have a dear friend of mine, Stanley, and no matter what you've done with your life, hey, that Jerry was a hell of a nice guy. Where are we going to lunch? That's it. Life goes on. So I was such a people pleaser and into getting external approval that I really didn't live my life for myself until you taught me that it's okay to get out there as long as I'm try to be of love and service in AA. Just go out there and set a goal, do whatever the heck you want to do, and don't give up. So my first job in recovery was at the Jewish drug program called Chabad, and my position was I was a night watchman, and I had to sit in a beanbag basically in the living room of this rehab, and my function was, you probably remember Chabad over on Veteran, my job was to make sure that none of the patients or clients left the facility and snuck out to the liquor store or whatever. And it required no skills. From midnight to 8 a.m., my job was to sit in the beanbag or sit in a chair, channel surf, and just make sure no one left the facility. And 2 weeks into that job, I was fired. I'll never forget, I called my sponsor. I said, geez, this job requires no skills. I'm terminated from a job that really is just like I'm a warm body. And he said, are you going to go to a meeting? I said, I'm going to go to a meeting of AA. He says, you got a place to stay? And I was staying at somebody's couch. At this time, I think I had a few months of sobriety, and I had gone down to a place called Casa de Hermandad to get on food stamps, and they gave me this job at Chabad, and I was so filled with anger and so out of touch with my feelings that I was just wound like an 8-day clock, and I think the people felt like they were a little concerned about my attitude, man, that I was going to be, have a volcanic eruption or something, because I, was smiling, but you could tell I was insanely rageful. And so I got terminated, and my sponsor said, you going to a meeting? I said, yeah. He says, do you have food? I said, yeah, I got food stamps. He says, it's going to be okay. Just don't drink or use today. It's going to be okay. Go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. One door closes, another one opens. How many times have we heard that? One door. So I just believed him. I mean, I was tenderized enough to say, okay, And I went to the meeting, and then I got a job, and that led to, and by the way, I did the 5th step when I had 28 days. I went through, all the way through step 9 in about my first 6 to 8 months of sobriety. At about 10 months or so, I got this other job. I started to do okay, and I got my first apartment in Venice Beach. It was a 1-room apartment on Oceanfront Walk. And I was so excited to have my own place, man. It was a beginning of the arc of the odyssey of recovery, where you're moving from the re-entry, bouncing around people's beds, to your own little pad. And that became my little sanctuary. I had all kinds of spiritual books there, and I began the process of what you taught me to do here. And by the way, when you listen to the promises, it says they will always materialize if we work for them. It requires tremendous effort to stay sober, tremendous exertion. It requires, for me, I became a hard-working person in sobriety. I was a 50-yard dasher, never completed anything. If I couldn't do something right away, I quit. But in AA, you taught me, you suit up and you show up, and you don't leave, and you keep persisting one day at a time. So I did okay at that job. I had my own apartment, and I was starting to do well at this job, and my first car was a Citroen, which is a French piece of crap. Somebody said piece of crap. No, it's it kind of looks like a Buck Rogers spaceship, but it's a pretty cool car. I always wanted one because they're kind of interesting, and they have a pneumatic suspension system. And so I hustled some. I had a little money. It was $600. I bought this car. I'll never forget, the guy I bought it from was a wig salesman, and it's kind of an unusual profession. And I met the guy. I said, well, you can tell me some of the features about the car. He says, you know, you can actually lose a wheel, and this car will still go. I said, I'll take it. I mean, like, this was important. I could lose a wheel, still make it to an AA meeting. I don't know what I was thinking. I drove that car around, and, you know, I would pick up drunks on the street, man. I did a lot of crazy things. I'd take them to I remember one time I had a guy who was a wino. He was in my apartment in Venice. He wouldn't stop smoking. I said, look, the ground rules are no smoking in the apartment. And I'd sort of fall asleep, and I'd see the guy light up another cigarette. He did like 3 or 4 times. I called my sponsor. I said, the guy will not follow. He said, well, kick the guy out. I said, oh, I can do that? Okay, great. So I kicked the guy out of my apartment. And I was trying. The best, I mean, all I can say is I was trying. You know, I had this little job. And then all of a sudden, the obsession to eat. One of my obsessions came up in sobriety, where I became sort of like a grazing animal, where food became a very important part of my day. And, you know, I ballooned up, man. I really gained a lot of weight. And I went to the OA program, and I don't mean to offend if there's anyone here from OA. OA is a great program. But I went to OA thinking, you know, because I had gained like 60 pounds, and I got my OA sponsor. And so I had to call her up every day to tell her what I was going to eat. I had to plan my day. Say I'm going to have summer squash for lunch, and I'm going to have 2 ounces of chicken. I got my special dressing. And I would go out to dinner with people on the program, and at that time there was a Hungry Tiger, and I would take with me my shopping bag with all my stuff, you know, my measuring cups and my little spoons, my special dressing, my balsamic vinegar and a special dressing, and I actually had a scale, you know, so I would go to that. I got totally obsessed. I'm going to lose this weight. I'm on the gray sheet. I'm just going to do this thing perfectly. And I ordered my swordfish, and I'll never forget, one time I ordered spinach salad. And, you know, this is like 30 days into this thing. I'd lost like 20 pounds in 30 days. You know, it's like really a strict eating plan. And so I ordered and I'm like starving, man. I'm so hungry, but I'm sticking to this thing. And I order the spinach salad, and it's like, so I'm allowed 2 cups, and I had this plastic cup, and so I'm putting the spinach salad in there, and I'm ramming it in there. I literally am taking all my weight and push, and the plastic measuring cup explodes, you know, and all the spinach salad goes over the table, and you know. And my friends from AA, you know, they're all there with. It's okay, man. He's sober. It's okay, man. Let him. Just ignore him, man. He's wacko. Then my swordfish comes out, and I slice it. I put it on my scale. You know, I look like I'm on a bad acid trip. You know, like this. You know, I'm just freaked out, newly sober, and wound like an 8-day clock, and really like strange looking, like insane. Is this guy gonna pop? And then in my place in Venice, I had removed all the food so that I could adhere to my new eating plan. I took all the food out, and all I had was a little bag of raisins, a little bag in the back of the cupboard behind the plates. I kept a reserve a bag of raisins, and you're not supposed to have raisins. I mean, I remember one time I called up my food sponsor. I said, you know, I'm not going to be able to have the summer squash today because they're out of the summer squash, so I'm going to substitute asparagus. It's the same caloric thing. She said, no, you have to go get the summer squash. I said, come on, give me a break. I mean, it's the same thing, same dance with another foot. I'll just take, and she said no, and boom, hung up on me. I thought, wow, man, these Nazis in OA, man, these sponsors, you got to really adhere to the program, the letter of the law, man. I had to go out and try to hustle up some summer squash. And so, you know, I'm starting to get really emotional now because the weight, there's nothing between me, and I've lost a lot of weight. And I'm over at a friend's place, and they move a piece of furniture, And I look at the furniture going from there, and I start to cry. The change of the furniture going to... I start weeping. I mean, it's like I'm really unraveling rapidly on this eating plan. And so I decide that I'm going to have one raisin. So I say, one raisin, it's no big thing. So and it was like an acid trip, man. It was like, wow, the taste. I hadn't had any sugar in 30 days, and it was really sweet. It was like something really sweet other than, Diet Cokes and stuff. And man, it was like, wow, that's fantastic. I had another raisin. Then I ate the whole bag of raisins. Then I went over to an Italian restaurant, and before I ordered scampi. And I just kind of unraveled. So that was one of the obsessions that came up in sobriety. My early sobriety was eating and anger and feelings. And so at this job, now after I reactivated my obsessive eating, now, fast forward to 6 weeks ahead, now I'm having a craving at 4 o'clock in the morning for Winchell's Donuts. And so I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I would dress frantically. I'm going to go cop some raisins. I'm going to get some raisins. I get up. I get in that weird little Citron. I would start it up. It would rise up. It had the pneumatic suspension system. I'd beeline. I was on Oceanfront Walk. I'd go to Lincoln, and I would go to the Winchell's Donut there in Lincoln at like 4 in the morning. I would order 2 apple fritters. Now these things, they weigh like 2 kilos a piece, man. These things are huge. Deep fried apple fritters, man. Just like dough balls with sugar, and there's a little apple in there. I'd wolf them down, and then I go across the street to the 7-Eleven, and I get a pint of Haagen-Dazs. And this was before they had yogurt Haagen-Dazs. It was 1,000 or 1,400 calories. And I'd say, I think I know my limit. 6,000 calories in one sitting. And this is a classic alcohol. I say, I'll cap it off with a Diet Coke, like it really mattered. And then I would get into the car, and it would start it up. It would rise up. I'd be in a complete, sugar ozone. I'm sober, by the grace of God and the 12 steps. I'm going to make it through another day. It was totally insane behavior, and I still go through the food thing. I still sometimes get up in the middle of the night, but it's not drinking. I'm not drinking. It's a big difference. I'm not drinking, I'm not using, but it was just one of those obsessive, compulsive kind of behavioral patterns that came up. And then I left that little company, and I started my own company. I became an entrepreneur, which is a fancy word for, somebody who's unemployable, so they have to start their own company to get a real job. And I failed, and I went to a friend of mine in the program, and he said, why don't you try starting it again, but do it from your apartment rather than rent the office, give out the business cards, and when you give out a card, you say to somebody, well, don't call me because I'm rarely there. I don't go to the office, so don't call me there. I opened up an office, and I was afraid to go to work. So I failed. What do you expect? And then I started again, and I just said failure's not an option, and put AA first, and I just worked my tail off. We built up that company. We had over 200 employees in Los Angeles. We had another 400 employees in Canada. We won the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2001 for business service, and I didn't know anything about what I was doing. I just learned day to day. I would just go in and learn on the job through trial and error, and if I had a problem, I'd talk to somebody in the program and get guidance and just suit up and show up every day. Sold that company a couple years ago to a private equity group, and so I'm out of that business. And what a journey. I'm married today. I've got a 21-year-old son. That never would have happened without AA. Tomorrow I'm going to go to New York for 7 days, and then a week from Saturday I'm going to go to the sober vacation. I don't know if any of you have ever gone on that, but down to Ixtapa, Mexico, which is a lot of fun with a lot of AA people. And I'm still in the center of Alcoholics Anonymous because that's the best place for a guy like me to be. And the most insane thing for me to do would be to find an excuse to leave Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm going to, if it weren't for people like you and the 12 steps of AA, I would have missed it all. So I'm going to keep coming back. Thank you very much for my life.